and welcome to my home studio. I'm an artist, and today I'm going to show you how to make a treasure vessel for your found objects. So it'll be a container that you can keep things in that you find outside or around your house that are special to you and you want to keep them in a special place. So this is what the final product will look like. This is what we're going to make, something similar. Here's another example. And so you can use, so the thing is, because we're using upcycled objects or upcycled things that you'll find around the house, there's a lot of room to use different things than I'm using. You can use things that you can find that work better for you, and don't feel like you can't do this project if you can't find exactly what I'm using. The other thing is, the main thing I want to say, or first of all, I want to say that you should put down a protective covering to keep your table or your floor from getting messed up by the glue. I don't have anything on my table because this is a table I always use for my art projects, so if it gets messy, it's okay. You also want to wear clothes that can get dirty. Mostly they might get glue on them, so you don't want anything that you'd be worried about ruining. So first off, you'll need your container, the thing you're going to use for your vessel that'll keep your special items in, or your special found objects. So I've used bottles like these, like this one, but you can also use containers like this, or if you have a box already, that's fine, that you might want to decorate, or you could use like a baby food jar or a jelly jar, something like that. So there's room for you to use whatever you'd like to use. Then we're gonna need junk mail. So things like this, like envelopes that your parents might have that came in the mail that they're not gonna use and they'd probably just throw away. We wanna keep them out of the trash and use them for this project instead. So a good thing to use is these envelopes that I've opened, and they have patterns inside. They're called security envelopes. Your parents will know what those are. And here's an example of another one that has a different pattern. I've already opened up these envelopes, so you'll have to open up yours. Here's another pattern. The patterns are good to have. I don't know if you can see that one because it's so light. And then the other thing you can use is letters that come in the mail that your parents don't need and they would want to throw away. So here's like a letter. There's writing on the front. It's empty on the back, but you can have writing on both sides or have it empty on the back. It's fine. Then we'll need something to color with, so you can use crayons or colored pencils. I don't think it's a good idea to use markers because they'll bleed when we use glue on this project. So you will need glue. I used Elmer's glue, but any white glue that's liquidy will be fine. So if you have something similar, feel free to use that. You'll need a container for your glue. So I've used this thing that I was gonna throw away or put in the recyclables. You just put a little bit of glue in at a time so you don't waste any. And then if you don't have glue, or if glue's too messy, you can use clear tape, like Scotch tape is what I'm using, but any clear tape is fine. Then you'll need these baby wipes or wet paper towels or cloths to wipe your hands really quickly if you get glue on them, because you don't want the glue to stick on there onto your hands because it'll get messy when you're working on your project. Then we're going to need something to decorate our vessels in the end, like to tie a bow at the top. So you can see that I've used ribbon on this one, but if you don't have ribbon, you could use maybe a strip of fabric, or you could use yarn or string, or even a shoelace. So we'll go ahead and get started on our project. I'm excited to show you how to do this. So we have two options for how to do this. One option is to use tape to put the paper on your vessel. The other option is to use glue. The tape is a little easier, it's less messy, and it doesn't involve using a paintbrush, and the paintbrush can get a little tricky. So especially if you're younger, you might want to think about using the tape instead of the glue. So we'll start with showing how to use the tape. So what you can do is either leave the envelopes the way they are with the patterns and designs because that's pretty itself. Or if you don't have the pattern envelopes, you can use one of the letters with the writing. And if you want, you can color on your paper, and it doesn't have to be neat and pretty because we're going to tear it up anyway. And when we do these vessels, it's almost like a sculpture. It's more about the color and the design and the texture, so how it feels when you touch it, more than it's about a drawing or something specific or detailed like that. So now you see that I've colored a lot of my paper. What I'm going to show you is just using the black and white patterns and designs and the writing, the black and white writing, in case you don't want to use the color because that takes extra time. So if you don't have a lot of time, you might just want to use the envelopes and letters as they are. So we want to tear them into pieces. And this doesn't have to be really neat either. It can be messy if you want because we're going to do a lot of layering and putting the papers on top of each other. And then I'm going to try a different design so we can mix a bunch of patterns. And if you don't have pattern envelopes, it's okay to use, like I said, the writing, which I can show you here, or feel free to use your colored pages. And because we tore up the writing, it's not important for you to be able to read the writing. So it doesn't matter if you put it right side up or if you turn it around. And you don't have to tape down all the sides perfectly because in the end we'll go back and we'll make it a little more smooth. But because this is more like a sculpture than something you would do on a flat piece of paper, the texture and the way it feels is really good. So you do want, I mean, the wrinkles are okay, that's just part of it. So don't think that you have to smooth those out perfectly. Now it's okay to leave the top messy. You don't have to cover up here because we're gonna tie a ribbon around that later so you won't even see it. And then at the bottom, you do want to fold the paper under to keep that part a little neat. You tuck it under, and then you might need to fold a little bit over in the corner like you would wrap a present. And then tape that on the bottom also. So you can see I have made my own little pattern with all the designs on the different papers. Now there's several spots, or there's a lot of areas that are missing tape, and it's a little bit of a different feeling than the places that are smoother with the tape. So you can go back if you want and tape down some of the corners that didn't get taped before, and you can cover up any spaces where you want to add tape to sort of give it a clean finish. So you can see this spot is sticking up a little. So that's a place that you can go back now in the end, like where we are now, and go ahead and tape that down. So I think this looks pretty good, and we'll set that aside while we do the vessel with the glue, and we'll come back to this. Okay, so now we're gonna do the type of vessel that's a little more difficult, a little messier with the glue. So you can see that I've colored this paper, but you can also color your paper like this when you do the tape option. This is just, I'm gonna use this example for the glue. I've colored this paper, and another thing you can do is if you'd like to draw your own patterns, kind of like the envelopes that we were looking at before, you could draw your own patterns. Okay, so here you can see I have drawn a design of X's and O's and hearts. And X's and O's stand for hugs and kisses, and then I've also drawn the hearts. So here I have my own pattern, and I also have this colored paper. You can use both or one or the other. So now we have our papers torn up into small pieces, and this is where you'll need a paintbrush and a cup of water for your paintbrush, which I forgot to mention when I was going over the supplies before. So make sure you have those ready before you start gluing. You'll need the paintbrush for gluing the papers down. So here we have the vessel that we're going to use to turn into our treasure vessel, and with the glue, and you see here I have my container with the glue. With the glue, you want to first put glue down on your vessel, like this, and then you put the piece of paper on the glue. Make sure you get the glue all the way under, the way I did. See, you can see here that I put glue directly on the vessel, then you put the paper down and put glue on top of the paper, so that the paper has glue underneath it and below, and on top of it. And then you put another piece of paper overlapping it a little bit. And make sure you get underneath also. And it helps to try to hold your container where there isn't glue so that your fingers don't get glue on them while you're working, because when you do get glue on your fingers, it gets really messy because the glue to your fingers starts sticking to the vessel, and then it makes your papers that you're gluing down all dirty. And you'll notice at first the paper is a little stiff, but once you put the glue on top of it, it helps make the paper a little wet and it bends easier. And then this is also a situation where the wrinkles are okay. You're not going to be able to make the whole thing without wrinkles, but that adds to the texture so that it's more like a sculpture instead of the flat piece of paper, like I said before when we were doing the tape version. Now you'll see that on the inside there are words showing through, which I think is really neat because it's a surprise on the inside, when on the outside you have all these colors and pattern. It looks like a patchwork quilt almost. And then on the inside you get these little phrases. So you can see I've gotten a little glue on my finger, which is sticking to my project, so now I need to wipe it off really quickly. Now another thing, if you want to cut out shapes, if you have a little extra time, you could cut out some shapes and add more to your pattern and design. And if the paper starts to come up in some places, just smooth it back down while it's still wet. So you might want to check every now and then to see if the paper starts coming up, so you can make sure you catch that. And then I'll add a heart heart there. And then glue that down. Another heart. And you want to make sure that you have the whole vessel coated in a layer of glue, because when it dries, that'll leave a nice shine to it, a nice clean smooth coat. And then you should let it dry upside down, because this has no glue on it, so it won't stick to your table. So now we're going to finish off our vessels by wrapping a ribbon around the top. You can see on this one I didn't have a ribbon, so I used a strip of fabric or cloth, and you could also use like a strip from an old t-shirt. If you're still learning how to tie a bow, you don't have to tie a bow. A knot is fine, like I did with that one. On this one I did tie a bow, but I wanted to show you that if you use something thin like this shoelace, if you wrap it around several times, that helps it show up on your vessel and not get lost in the pattern in the background. And remember, if some of the texture does show at the top or some of the rough edges like we left, it hides it some, but if some of it shows, that's okay, because it's part of the texture of the project. These are the objects I found to put in my treasure vessel. I have a coin, a button, shark's teeth, a pom-pom. Have fun with your project, and thank you for watching.